A woman lands a commercial airliner after the entire crew falls unconscious. She had never flown a plane before. But when everyone in the cockpit collapsed, she had no choice. She landed that massive aircraft, saved hundreds of lives, and then made one strange request. She asked to be taken to the control tower. What she said there changed aviation safety forever. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Sarah Mitchell was sitting in seat 2 for C, reading a book she had picked up at the airport. She was flying from Chicago to Denver on a routine Tuesday afternoon. The flight was smooth. The sky was clear. Everything seemed perfectly normal. She worked as an engineer for a manufacturing company and was heading to a conference. Flying was just part of her job. She had done it hundreds of times. But this flight would be different. This flight would test her in ways she could never have imagined. Around 30 minutes into the flight, Sarah noticed something odd. A flight attendant rushed past her row, moving faster than usual. Her face looked worried. Then another attendant hurried toward the front of the plane. Sarah glanced around. Other passengers were starting to notice too. Some were whispering. Some were leaning into the aisles, trying to see what was happening. Sarah closed her book and paid attention. A few minutes later, an announcement came over the speaker. But it was not the captain's voice. It was a flight attendant, and her voice was shaking. She said there was a medical situation in the cockpit. She asked if there was a doctor on board. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Medical situation in the cockpit. That was serious. That was very serious. 2 people stood up and moved toward the front. Sarah watched them disappear behind the curtain. Then she waited. Everyone waited. The plane continued flying straight. The engines hummed, but something felt wrong. The cabin grew quieter. People stopped talking. They stopped moving. They just sat there, staring at the seatbacks in front of them, waiting for some kind of update. Sarah tried to stay calm. She told herself that everything would be fine. Pilots trained for emergencies. There were backup systems. There were protocols. But deep down, she felt a growing fear. Something was very wrong. Then the flight attendant came back on the speaker. Her voice was no longer shaking. It was steady, but tight. She said that both pilots were unconscious. She said they needed someone who had any kind of flight experience. Sarah felt her heart drop. Both pilots, unconscious. She looked around the cabin. No one moved. No one raised their hand. The seconds stretched out. The silence was heavy. And then, without thinking, Sarah stood up. She did not have flight experience. Not really. But she had something. Years ago, her father had been a pilot, a small plane enthusiast. He had taken her up dozens of times when she was younger. He had let her sit in the co-pilot seat. He had shown her the controls. He had even let her take the yoke a few times, guiding the plane under his supervision. It was not much. It was barely anything. But it was more than nothing. And right now, nothing was all anyone else had. Sarah walked to the front of the plane. The flight attendant looked at her with desperate hope. She asked Sarah what experience she had. Sarah told her the truth. Small planes. Years ago, just a hobby with her father. The flight attendant looked at the doctor who was still kneeling beside the unconscious pilots. The doctor shook his head. He said there was nothing he could do. They were breathing, but they were completely unresponsive. Poison, gas. No one knew, but they were not waking up. The flight attendant made a decision. She brought Sarah into the cockpit. Sarah sat down in the captain's seat. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the instrument panel. It was nothing like the small Cessna her father had flown. This was a commercial airliner. Hundreds of buttons, screens, levers, lights. She felt overwhelmed. She felt terrified. But she also felt something else. A strange calm, a focus. She had to do this. There was no other option. She picked up the radio. She pressed the button and spoke. She said her name. She said she was a passenger. She said both pilots were unconscious, and she was the only person on board with any flight experience. There was a pause. Then a voice came back, calm, professional. It was an air traffic controller. He said his name was David. He said he was going to help her. He said she was going to be okay. Sarah wanted to believe him. David started talking her through the basics. He told her which instruments to watch. He told her how to keep the plane level. He told her the altitude, the speed, the heading. Sarah listened carefully. She repeated everything back to him. She kept her hands on the yoke. She felt the plane respond to her touch. It was heavier than the small planes she remembered, but it moved the same way. She just had to stay calm. She just had to listen. The plane was still on autopilot, but David explained that she would need to take manual control for the landing. He guided her step by step. He told her when to descend. He told her how much to adjust the throttle. He told her where to look on the instruments. Sarah followed every instruction exactly. She did not deviate. She did not second guess. She trusted him completely. As the plane descended, Sarah could see the airport in the distance. Runways stretched out like grey ribbons. Emergency vehicles were already lining the taxiway. Lights flashing, waiting. She knew everyone on the ground was watching. She knew everyone on the plane was depending on her. She felt the weight of it, but she did not let it crush her. She focused on David's voice. She focused on the instruments. She focused on getting everyone down safely. David walked her through the final approach. He told her when to lower the landing gear. She found the lever and pulled it. She heard the mechanical clunk as the wheels extended. He told her to reduce speed. She pulled back the throttle. The plane slowed. He told her to line up with the runway. She adjusted the yoke gently. The runway grew larger in the windshield. Closer, closer. She could see the numbers painted on the asphalt. She could see the lights along the edges. David told her to keep the nose up slightly, to let the back wheels touch first. Sarah held the yoke steady. Her hands were sweating. Her heart was pounding. The ground rushed up. And then, with a hard jolt, the wheels hit the runway. The plane bounced once, twice, then it settled. Sarah immediately pulled back the throttle completely. She pressed the brakes. The plane slowed. It rolled down the runway, slower and slower, until finally it came to a stop. For a moment, Sarah just sat there. She could not move. She could not speak. Then the cabin erupted. People were cheering, crying, clapping. The flight attendant came into the cockpit and hugged her. Sarah just nodded. She felt numb. She felt exhausted. But she also felt something else. Relief. Overwhelming relief. Emergency crews surrounded the plane. Medical teams rushed on board and took the unconscious pilots to the hospital. Passengers were escorted off carefully. Sarah was one of the last to leave. As she stepped onto the tarmac, she was met by airport officials. They thanked her. They called her a hero. But Sarah did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had simply done what needed to be done. Then she made a request. She asked to be taken to the control tower. The officials looked at her, surprised. But they agreed. They drove her across the airport to the tower. She climbed the stairs and walked into the room where David had been guiding her. She wanted to meet him. She wanted to thank him face to face. David stood up when she entered. He was younger than she had imagined. His eyes were red. He looked shaken. Sarah walked over to him and shook his hand. She thanked him for saving her life, for saving everyone on that plane. David shook his head. He said she was the one who saved them. She was the one who stayed calm. She was the one who flew the plane. Sarah smiled. She said they did it together. But Sarah did not stop there. She asked to speak with the airport director. She asked to speak with the airline officials. When they arrived, she told them something important. She told them that what happened today should never happen again. She told them that if something as simple as contaminated air or food could take down an entire cockpit crew, then the system was broken. She told them that airlines needed better protocols, better safety measures, better training for situations like this. Her words carried weight. She was not just a passenger. She was an engineer. She understood systems. She understood failure points. And she had just lived through one. The officials listened. They took notes. They promised to review procedures. And they did. In the months that followed, new regulations were put in place. Cockpit crews were required to eat different meals. Air filtration systems were upgraded. Emergency training for flight attendants was expanded to include more scenarios. Sarah's experience became a case study. It became a lesson. It became a catalyst for change. Sarah went back to her normal life. She went back to her job. She went back to flying on planes. But she was never quite the same. She had faced something most people would never face. She had looked fear in the eye and acted anyway. She had saved lives, and she had used that experience to make sure others would be safer in the future. The story of Sarah Mitchell spread. News outlets covered it. Aviation experts analyzed it. People around the world heard about the woman who landed the plane. But what most people remember is not just that she landed it. It is what she did after. She did not walk away. She did not just accept praise and move on. She demanded change. She demanded better. And because of that, the skies became a little bit safer for everyone. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.